Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phils come back again in LA. They win the hangover game, and Rafael Marchan plays the hero.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio for over 5 years now. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Just another vintage, ridiculous win by the 2025 Phillies last night in the hangover game. I mean, with the circumstances, this might be their most impressive win of the year, being that they partied late into the night in the visiting clubhouse after clinching the NL East title the night before. You come out, you expect, okay, well, they had travel delays getting to LA. And then they won the division in an extra innings game and decided to get rip-roaring drunk, as you always do when you win a division in baseball. And then you got to play a game the next day. Oh, and Shohei Ohtani's on the mound for the other team. Doesn't exactly sound like a recipe for success. But this Phillies team is different. And I'll tell you why last night was just another example of that. We're also going to get into a very intriguing update on Kyle Schwarber and his pending free agency when this year is over. A report from an MLB insider that should make Phillies fans feel pretty darn good. And we'll take a look at Game 3 because the Phillies have a chance to go for the sweep in LA after taking the first 2 from the Dodgers. But last night's game was wild. So the Phils get no hit through the first 5 innings of this game. They're down 4-0. And the next thing you know, you're just like, okay, well, Sanchez is giving up 4. They're not putting together good at-bats on Ohtani. Hangover game, you just won the division last night. Whatever. Wipe this one, move on to the next one. It's cool. But every time you feel like you're going to do that lately with the Phillies, they say, yeah, hang on 1 second there. Don't you turn your TV off just yet. I know it's late there on the West Coast. We got something in our back pocket that we're going to pull out when it matters most. And last night, it was 6 runs in the 6th inning after getting no hit through 5. Who does that? That's flat out ridiculous. This team can just turn it on, man. They just battle. They do not give away at bats, and they find a way to make games tight. And then when games get tight, they have the veteran know-how from past experiences to end up on top when everything is said and done. It wasn't easy last night, and this 6th inning was great. Brandon Marsh hits a 3-run home run. Max Kepler hits an absolute bomb, and you're like, okay, cool, we're great. And then, well, David Robertson goes out there, and he struggled. Now, this is going to sound funny. I mean this. This is not tongue-in-cheek. This is like legitimate reasoning. David Robertson ain't 30 years old. He ain't 25 years old. That's a 40-year-old man. And if you know anything about partying, you know that it's pretty different backside of 30, and I imagine it's pretty different backside of 40. So maybe he was feeling a little bit more than some of his younger teammates the night before celebration, but he didn't look his best. I'm not losing any faith in David Robertson, not one bit. All right, he's been really clutch. He literally just worked out of a bases-loaded, 1-out jam the night before to help you win the division. I'm not going to crush the guy for giving up a run in the 8th inning. And then you bring in Tanner Banks, and he unfortunately allows one of the inherited runners from Dave Robertson's outing to score. And the next thing you know, it's 6-6. The bottom of the 8th is over, and you're heading into the top of the 9th saying, well, if we don't score here, we're either going to extras, which is always a disadvantage to the away team, or they're going to beat us in the bottom of the 9th. Like, we kind of have to score here. And the Phillies found a way. They scraped out a couple of base runners, and then with 2 outs in the top of the 9th inning, Rafael Marchan at the plate. And Marchan just absolutely turns on an inside sinker that scrapes off the wall out in right field. Like, it could not have gotten out of that ballpark by less, but it was incredible because, Garrett Stubbs was the highlight of a hangover game. I still can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago because the Phillies have made the postseason 4 years in a row now. It's nice to forget about things that happen when they're surrounding good things because so many good things have been happening. But Garrett Stubbs hit a big-time home run. I have to imagine it was last year because we did not expect it. It was surprising, and he was terrible throughout the course of last year, which is why Marchan was the backup catcher this year. So a backup catcher hitting a big home run in the hangover game the day after you clinch something, it's not new for the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's crazy that it's happened multiple times in this stretch. So Marchan gets the Garrett Stubbs Memorial Award for his performance last night. And the other cool thing about this, which can't be overstated, the Phillies have not been doing this because Kyle Schwarber's hit 53 home runs. The Phillies have not been doing this because Bryce Harper is playing like at an MVP caliber pace. He's not this year. The Phillies have not been doing this because Trey Turner has been one of the best bats in the National League. He's been unavailable for the past 10 games now, right? Or about that. The Phillies have been doing this with contributions from everybody. Harrison Bader, who seemed to be an ancillary outfield piece at the trade deadline that is turned into a superhuman. And Max Kepler being resurgent after many people, myself included, wanted him off this team at the trade deadline. Brandon Marsh, who went from an 0 for 29 stretch in the month of April and then being sent down to one of the hottest hitters on planet Earth, right? Not just the Phillies. Anywhere you can find baseball players, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who's been swinging it better than Brandon Marsh. The bullpen, guys settling in or battling through adversity, the changing of roles, the rotation. Hey, we lost Wheeler. We've got to step up. Ranger's done it. Sanchi's done it. Jesus Luzardo has done it. And how many times have we seen Philly starters over this stretch go out and give up 3 early, give up 4 early, and then just say, nah, you know what? Wipe it. Screw that. I'm going to just shove for as long as Rob Thompson will let me go. Sanchez last night ends up battling, going through 7 innings after giving up 4 early and looking really rough, just putting their foot down and saying, we're not going to do this anymore. I mean, we saw Nola do it. We saw Luzardo do it. It's become a calling card of this Phillies rotation. Now, would it be more ideal if they just didn't give up those runs to begin with? Absolutely. In the postseason, where the pressure ratchets up even more, could that be a big-time issue? For sure. And that's something that we'll be watching closely as the remainder of the regular season plays out. But the reason I'm bringing all of this up is it's been different guys every night. And last night, who had Rafael Marchan as the guy who's going to play hero for the Philadelphia Phillies? Hit a big-time 3-run, go-ahead home run in the 9th inning on the road at Dodger Stadium between 2 teams that are 2 of the top teams in the National League and really in baseball. Nobody saw that coming. But nobody saw the stretch coming from the Philadelphia Phillies in general. Wheeler goes down, Trey goes down, Alec Boehm goes down, and the Phils just keep rolling, man. They just keep winning series and winning baseball games and taking care of business. And you know how people talked about the Milwaukee Brewers when they were on their hot stretch? I'll tell you, in case you were not so much caught up on that. Maybe you're just zoned in on the Phillies night in and night out. The reason why so many people looked at the Brewers and why the Brewers had such a good record and have such a good record still, you're trying to track them down for the 1 seed. You are a 1.5 back on the Brewers now, 2.5 technically with the tiebreaker. You are 6.5 up on the Dodgers, 7.5 technically, because you now have the season series tiebreaker. But when the Brewers were on that stretch, people were like, okay, well, they pitch well, they hit well, they field well, they've got a solid bullpen, and everybody contributes. There aren't any real weak points with that team. Do they have the ceiling of some other teams? No. Do they have the highest floor in baseball? The argument could be made as to why they do. And you might say, Connor, this isn't Locked On Brewers. Why are you talking up Milwaukee? We might have to knock them out of the postseason coming up in a couple of weeks. Here's why I say that. Because everything you could say about that stretch for the Brewers, you could say about this current stretch for the Phillies. But there's a difference. The Brewers don't have Kyle Schwarber. They don't have a guy who's hit more than 50 home runs this year. The Brewers don't have a Bryce Harper, a guy with the postseason resume that he's put together that's as clutch as they come. They don't have a Trey Turner who's got that level of batting average and bat to ball and athleticism all compiled into one that makes him a very dangerous leadoff hitter. They don't have a Joan Duran who was awesome last night after giving up the game-tying home run on Monday, who is one of the best closers in baseball. They don't have it. They don't have the extra little bit that gives them the ceiling that the Phillies have. And this is not just a Phillies-Brewers conversation. This is a everybody is contributing for the Phillies. When they're hot, boy, are they hot. And right now, the Phillies might as well be the surface of the damn sun. That is how hot they're rolling in. And with only 3 more series after this one, before they get to October baseball, it is the perfect time of the year to be feeling this way about your ball club. So just another miraculous comeback, resolve, grit, all that stuff Rob Thompson talked about in his locker room speech ahead of the NL East champion celebration. The Phillies displayed that again last night in the hangover game under significant adversity, not just facing Ohtani and getting no hit through 5 innings, not just playing at Dodger Stadium against a really good Dodgers team, but dealing with the celebration, trying to bounce back after a long night. That's tough for even us normal people. Could you imagine doing that and having to play a Major League Baseball game? The Phillies, man, they just keep piling awesome wins. What a time to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan. And what a time to be a member of the team. But there's questions about a guy, one of the big parts of this team. How long will Kyle Schwarber be a member of this team for? That's been kind of the cloud that's been hanging over this season. With every home run he hits, another dollar in his pocket, or another $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 in his pocket. So what's the latest on Kyle Schwarber? I wouldn't be bringing this up if we didn't have some news. I'll tell you what it is next as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about PrizePicks first, though, because they're the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. It's super easy to do. And we've got a great Thursday night football game coming up tomorrow. Dolphins-Bills. You might say, Connor, the Dolphins stink. Exactly. That's why it's great if you want to use PrizePicks. And you should. Just take more on Josh Allen and James Cook and all of the Buffalo Bills. You put a couple of those together in your list, money in your pocket. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll even get $50 in lineups after you place your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So let's talk about the latest in the Kyle Schwarber free agency, or I guess pending free agency saga. Because the thought all year is the Phillies are going to do everything that they can to maintain him, or retain him, I should say. Maintain, he maintains himself. He only DHs. He doesn't get hurt, really. But what can the Philadelphia Phillies do to ensure that Kyle Schwarber is still a member of this team past the 2025 season? People have been super concerned about that, especially considering his MVP status this year, or contender status at least, because Shohei Ohtani did just hit his 50th home run of the year last night against the Philadelphia Phillies. So we know he's got an inside track to MVP. But Kyle Schwarber has done an incredible job of making his value as high as possible as he heads into probably the last big contract of his major league career. Now, Ken Rosenthal, who of course is a great Major League Baseball insider, has a lot of good intel, talks to a bunch of people, players, managers, front offices, agents. He says that the expectation is that designated hitter Kyle Schwarber will remain with the Philadelphia Phillies. A 4-year deal at $30 million plus per season seems realistic, in part because his leadership adds to his value. That is the quote from Ken Rosenthal's most recent report on the Kyle Schwarber situation. So there's a lot to break down here. First and foremost, I've been telling you this. I felt this all year. I do not have the inside information that a Ken Rosenthal does. But from what I've heard and who I've talked to around the Phillies, they want and need and expect Kyle Schwarber to be back. And when I say they expect Kyle Schwarber to be back, it's not, hey, I'll take a pay cut. I'm not going to go out and try and join another team. Like, it's you and only you. Schwarber's played for Washington, Boston, Chicago. He is not this lifelong Philadelphian that has always wanted to be here. And we know he's from Ohio. The Reds have been trying to steal him from us for like months now. When I say expect him to be here, expect John Middleton to cut the check, whatever's needed. I expect Dave Dombrowski to be a guy that can facilitate that deal. That's what I mean. Like, they expect him to get the offer he deserves here in Philadelphia and to come back. And if Ken Rosenthal's already reporting now, as we sit here in September, mid-September, that Kyle Schwarber's going to be back, that's the expectation, you can pretty much take it to the bank. Now, the $30 million plus per year, right now he is on a 4-year, $100 million deal. Some quick math will tell you that's $25 million for a year. Now, Schwarber is heading into his year 33 season. Year 33. Age 33 season. He has not been playing Major League Baseball since he was born, though his ability, he probably could have been. Is it smart to give a deal like that, a 4-year, $30 million plus deal? Let's just call it 30, just so the math works out easy. 4 years, $120 million to a guy that age. I don't know how you can. That's the thing. If you look at those numbers and your immediate thought is, I don't know if it's smart to give a guy that age that amount of money, you haven't been paying attention. I'm sorry, but that dude is worth every penny of that. And frankly, I think 4 years, $120 million would be a steal for what Kyle Schwarber brings to this baseball team. I need you guys to understand something, because if you're just Phillies focused, you have been focused on the National League, which means you have seen 3 years of designated hitter, right? But it's existed before. And if you look at some of the guys in American League history that have been in the designated hitter role, they do this forever. Like, the first guy I think about is Nelson Cruz, who was having like 40 home run seasons until he was 40 years old. Like, he had unbelievable longevity. I was trying to think about the different way to say longevity, but I didn't know how to make that possessive. Anyway, he had incredible longevity. And when you just hit every day, there's so much less wear and tear on the body that you can almost throw out the age with Kyle Schwarber. I'm not worried about him aging and getting older and anything. Clearly, he still has the power. Clearly, he is still in good shape for what you ask him to do. He's not winning any sprinting medals anytime soon, but that's not what he's here to do. He is here to put together great at-bats, mash baseballs into the solar system, and be a great clubhouse leader. And that's the other thing about this that is really important to know. The part of the report where he says, in part, because his leadership adds to his value. That cannot be overstated. Yes. See, I already used that terminology earlier in the episode, and I already messed up. This is what the late nights on the West Coast do to a guy. Up at 4 a.m., sleeping throughout the day. Anyway, you don't need to hear about my problems. But Kyle Schwarber's leadership is worth a big part of that contract alone. Like, what you're getting hitting home runs, that's the number one thing, is baseball productivity. But to have a guy in the clubhouse that everywhere along his line of Major League Baseball stops, guys have said, this dude is like the greatest teammate we've ever played with. He's a leader. He's great in the locker room. He is everything you want a teammate to be. And that's valuable too. So you put all of that together and you say the Phillies have that guy in-house already. They've had success with that guy on the team. He seems to really like it here in Philadelphia and be interested in remaining a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And you're going to let that guy walk? Because the team with the third highest payroll in baseball, or fourth highest, I forget, I think they're fourth behind the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers, won't cut the check? If you think that's a legitimate scenario that's going to happen, you're living in fantasy land, which is why I totally believe Ken Rosenthal's report. I firmly believe that Kyle Schwarber will remain a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And you just let me know in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube here, would you give Kyle Schwarber that payday? I don't know how you say no to that, but if you are some of the people with reservations and you have a strong case to make, let me know how you feel. But I'm paying the man. I was always paying the man. And I think the Phillies will pay the man. By the way, speaking of the YouTube, of course, you can watch Locked On Phillies on YouTube. And if you're doing so, please make sure you're liking and subscribing. Subscribing's free and easy, and it will get you notifications when new episodes are posted so you never miss anything. It helps you out, helps us out here on Locked On Phillies, so make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube. And if you're checking us out in podcast form, we're also available wherever you get your podcasts. If you just want to listen to Locked On Phillies, please make sure you're rating and reviewing. I appreciate all of that very much. I also appreciate what the Phillies have been doing recently and winning ball games and craziest ways to win ball games, but they got another one tonight. The grind doesn't stop. It is not over, folks. They will play the Dodgers one more time, and if they can complete this sweep, the 2 seed might be just about done. In fact, I'll make my argument as to why the 2 seed is pretty much locked up anyway as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about our friends over at Monarch Money, though, because most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's super easy to see how everything breaks down with Monarch Money. And it's built for people with busy lives. Or let's say it this way. It's built for people who may be a little bit lazy, like me. Like, come on, I don't want to go to all these different apps and check and keep up on all my finances. I got stuff to do, right? I want you to do it for me. And Monarch Money does. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's not just how you maintain your money. It helps you with how you grow your money, keeping track of all your investments and things like that. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Go ahead and check them out. Get your finances online with monarchmoney.com. Let's also talk about Game Time, because there's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting the tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. And that's why I use Game Time. I'm going to Phillies Twins next weekend, the final series of the regular season at Citizens Bank Park, because my mom and brother are Minnesota fans. We got our tickets through Game Time. Normally, when I'm going, I just sit in the press box. If I want that type of service, though, that media gets, I'm going to Game Time because they treat you like you're a VIP. They're fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee, which means you're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. It's the perfect way to get to all baseball games as the postseason comes here. NFL, hockey, basketball, comedy, concerts, theater, whatever you need a ticket to, Game Time's there for you. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. It's that easy. Download Game Time today. There is another baseball game in LA, and you might say to yourself, well, how in the world could the Phillies top what they've done the last 2 nights? So Night one, they go into extras in a back-and-forth ridiculous game. They win the NL East. Night two, you got the hangover game. You bounce back from being down 4-0 and no hit through 5 innings to come back, then dramatic slate. Then Marchan hits the go-ahead 3-run home run. Joan Duran slams the door on the Dodgers. It's just like, it's been an incredible series from both perspectives. Now, the Dodgers aren't happy they've lost 2 games, but if you're just a fan of baseball, this has been high level and very entertaining baseball. So, how did the Phillies follow it up for a third encore? Or would it be the second encore? Because I guess the first encore would be game 2. Anyway, you see, I'm really in my head today. The Phillies have a great chance to take all 3 games in LA against the Dodgers because they have Jesus Luzardo on the mound. And we know that when he's going really good, he's really good. But somebody who's also really good is Blake Snell, who will be on the mound for the Los Angeles Dodgers in 48 1/3 innings this year because he had some injury issues. Struck out 55 guys. His ERA is 2.79. He's already won 4 games. He does have a 4-4 record, so he's beatable, but he's only given up 3 home runs in those 48 1/3 innings pitched. So he's a tough guy to hit out of the ballpark. He has strikeout stuff. He keeps guys relatively off the bases, but 23 walks in 48 1/3 innings pitched. So the strategy against Blake Snell, at least what the numbers would tell you, be patient, work your way on base so that the few hits that you are able to get against him matter, because going yard against him is not easy. But hey, anyone could single off anybody. So you walk, you steal second, next thing you know, single brings a guy in. That's how you have to produce runs against a guy like Blake Snell. Also, clearly, with the walks thing, it's beneficial in another way. The Dodgers bullpen stinks. The Phillies were getting no hit last night through 5 innings, and the bullpen takes over, which was probably a bad decision by Dave Roberts, the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, to pull Shohei Ohtani. Weird spot to do that. But that's their problem, not ours. When you saw the bullpen come in, you saw the immediate change in the Phillies' ability not just to get on base, but to hit the ball out of the yard and get runs in. So the more selective you are, the more you work the pitch count up, the more you get to a bullpen that has been one of the weaknesses of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that's the offensive strategy. For Luzardo, I don't think anyone has any doubts at this point, with Wheeler done for the year, that Luzardo is in the playoff rotation. But I'll tell you right now, I'm throwing Sanchez before I'm throwing him, and I'm throwing Ranger before I'm throwing him. So if there's a conversation about, well, does Walker Buehler get a chance? Does Aaron Nola get a chance? Does Taijuan Walker get a chance? And just to make my point clear, Jesus Luzardo has had the better year than all of those guys, right? So I would prefer Jesus Luzardo, but Luzardo, Ranger, Sanchi, all lefties. If you do go righty, you may think about doing that after Ranger and after Sanchez have thrown in the first 2 games of the series. So with that in mind, does Luzardo still feel the pressure to say, hey, I want the ball as early as possible in a series because I really can help this team? Or do the Phillies still have questions of how early should we give Luzardo the ball in a playoff series? He's not just advocating for himself with how he throws. He's advocating for a team in the Philadelphia Phillies who have prioritized handedness and matchups of handedness for pretty much everyone not named Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. You look at that and you say, okay, he's now pitching to prove that 3 lefties in a row in a postseason series could work. And I'm not saying that he needs to figure some stuff out, right? He's been really good this year, and we know he's had his downs, but lately he's had his ups. He's got some stuff still on the line, though, to how he factors in to the postseason rotation. And if he can shut down the Dodgers, well, not only will that give the Phillies a good chance at sweeping, but it will give the Phillies some more data to say we can throw Luzardo whenever in the postseason. And as far as that 2-seed conversation is concerned, you've already won the season series. You have the tiebreaker. You're 6.5 up, but technically 7.5 with the tiebreaker. I mean, there's very, very little way that the Phillies do not lock up a top 2 seed in the National League. after winning this series against the Dodgers. So it's night bonus baseball, I guess technically. Would I still like to see them win because what it will show for October that this team is capable of? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's been mission accomplished already in LA. So if you're staying up late tonight, maybe crack a beer, kick your feet up, and just enjoy the hottest team in baseball as they continue to roll through the final part of their regular season and steamroll their way into October. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it, as I always do. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps you out and helps us out. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Phil's off day tomorrow, so we'll do a standings check-in, the final standings check-in of the season as we look through actually, no, I think they have Thursday off next week too. Anyway, one of the final standing check-ins of the regular season tomorrow on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.